What is your goal? What are you trying to accomplish with your Facebook posts or your TikTok posts or whatever, or your ads, right? Like, what is your goal? Because sometimes, depending on your industry, that might not be the right place to be. And if it's not the right place to be, or at least be spending money, don't be there and be spending money.
Welcome to the Sales Made Simple podcast. This podcast is dedicated to helping overwhelmed outdoor living professionals, landscapers, and hardscapers just like you increase your closing rate to over 75% without doubling your workload so you can build a seven-figure business that doesn't need you. I'm your host, Joshua Gillow. Let's dig in. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Sales Made Simple podcast. This is your host, Joshua Gillow. And this week, we have Eric and Katie back on. They wrote the book, The Road to Seven Figures. So we're going to go deep into marketing this week. And this is one of my favorite topics to talk about next to sales because they're back to each other and one affects the other significantly. If you didn't have a chance to listen to our episode last week, we talked all about systems and how to start building systems in your business. So if you are at that point where you want to grow and scale your business and can't quite figure it out, go back and take a listen to that one. A lot of great nuggets in there. So this week, we're going to be focusing on the top 3 ways to get found on Google. This is Katie's wheelhouse. We're going to talk about how to get found on Google. Paid social media. What's your best bang for your buck? How do you know you're not just throwing money into a black hole? That's what I call marketing, right? Wrong marketing is throwing money into a black hole and keeping your fingers crossed. Don't do that. We're going to learn more about that today. And also, what toolkit can we use to supercharge our website? Like, what are some things we need to make sure of that our website's doing for us that we can be found? So guys, welcome back.
Glad to be back.
Thank you.
You know what I love about the book you guys wrote is that you have an entire section. You start off with the you, so the person first, the owner, like getting that right. Then we get into the business, important systems and financials and all of that, all to lead way to marketing, right? So many in business want to go right to the marketing, right to the money, and then wonder why the rest of the business doesn't work, because they haven't spent time on themselves and or building systems around that. They want to scale before they actually have a business in place and they get themselves in trouble. So that's why I want to jump in with you today. That's why we've gone this way with our conversation so far to build people up to the point where they can be like, all right, now I'm ready. I've worked on myself. I understand systems. I know what I need to do there. Now, how can I start getting those leads coming in the door that I can go out there and help? So Katie, I'm excited to hear what you got for us. So let's do this. Let's jump into why is ranking on Google so critical to being found? I know this might sound like a basic question, but how important is it in today's day and age to be found on first page of Google?
Yeah. I mean, it's critical, right? Because that's where everybody's going for information. As soon as people stop saying, oh, Google it, then Google's got a problem. Because right now we know if we want to find something, if we want to learn something, like that's where we're going. And so you've got to be there. Also, I think it's really important to understand that today's consumer is so much more demanding, right? If you think about it, like we're so impatient, right? We're so demanding on what we want, and we can blame Amazon for that. But I mean, I expect to order something and have it delivered in one day and not pay shipping. Well, people expect the same thing in a way now when they go online. They expect to find exactly what they're looking for when they're looking for it, no matter what, right? So you've got to show up there. Also, we just say Google whenever we're saying it because honestly, like 95% of all searches still happen on Google. So there's a lot of other search engines, and all the marketing things we talk about apply on every search engine. We just say Google because that's where everybody is at. So yeah, that's it. The crazy thing about all things digital is there's so much social proof in it. If you rank high, you get clicked first, right? People go for the convenience, but they also believe it. Like, hey, if you're ranked number 1, you must be the best. And whether they believe you're the best and that's why you get the click, or we're just too lazy to scroll through and search, it doesn't matter. That first page of Google is pretty critical. And there's a couple different tactics that you can use just on the first page of Google, and they all have different strategies behind them.
Would you mind digging into those strategies a little bit and talking about that? Because I know that, when I get onto Google and I'm searching things as a consumer, if I see a sponsored part, I skip past and go to the first organic one. That's my way of using Google. I'm not sure that everybody does that, but that's what I do because I'm like, I don't want to be told what I should be doing. I actually want it to find something that might work for me. So how do you work around that? How do you get to first page? What's important when I'm trying to get to first page?
So when you're putting your marketing together, right, there's even a few choices you have on the first page of Google. The very top is the Google Guarantee. That's local service ads. They have a little green check mark next to them. And it's free to go get Google Guaranteed. You got to jump through some hoops and, provide some insurance and certifications. But if you do that, Google will give you a little green check mark right next to your name. And those are pay per lead. So you can kind of estimate how much is this lead going to cost me to go get it. And it runs through Google. It's called Google Local Service Ads. Next one, it's what most people think of when you think of advertising on Google. And those are the search ads. Those are the ones that say sponsored right by them. Most people recognize those are paid. Google's done a really good job over the last couple of years of trying to make them look as organic as they can. Some people have no idea that those are paid at the top of the page. Some people know, like you, and scroll down, and some people, quite honestly, just don't care. Like, they're just like, I'm just going to click on the first thing I see. Those are pay per click. Okay, so you're going to pay every time somebody clicks on your page, whether they call you or turn into a lead or not. Then you're going to see your maps. That's where Google Business Profile is going to show up, which is free. And I think one of the biggest opportunities that there is on Google, some different things for service businesses to be aware of there. And then underneath that, that's where your reviews live, right? Really, really important. A lot of things we can talk about around reviews for growing your business. And then you hit the organic. This is just organically ranking. And the latest algorithm update from Google is all about helpful content. So your website, it's not about how much content you have on your website. It's all about how helpful that content is to somebody that's searching.
Can you define helpful?
Yeah, you bet. Meaning like, okay, here's something that got really popular for a while. Everybody was putting city pages on their websites for every city that they service, right? Because they're like, I'm just going to put all this content out there about these 50 cities that I might service, but none of the content is actually about what they're coming about, landscaping or about restoration or about carpet cleaning or about all the different things. It's about, this is the park and this is City Hall, and not helpful to the person that's trying to find a new landscaper or is standing in a flooded basement, right? So you can get rid of stuff on your website that you think is helping you rank for keywords or locations and just focus on really high quality, frequently asked questions. That's helpful, right? What to do when this happens. That's helpful. Questions to ask an expert, like things that is like a real person would ask you about your business when they were trying to decide whether or not they should use you. That's the type of content you want on your website.
I love it. And I want to follow up with a question that I'm sure at least some listeners are thinking about. How much AI can I use and how much has to be me? Does Google care if it's AI generated or is it something that I've got to write still the old fashioned way? Like what is Google's take on AI?
Such a good question and a really hot topic, right? Google came out and publicly stated that penalize isn't the right word, but Google can identify AI language. Quite honestly, like, I'm not as smart as AI, but I can identify AI language, right? Like, I love it. I use it all the time. I think you should be using ChatGPT in so many parts of your business, that marketing systems across the board, but you should not be using it for your blogs or your exact content. Use it for your ideas. Use it to get a start going, right? But it does need to be, your content on your website needs to be written by a human. At very least, it needs to go and be adjusted with a real human voice. And it can, if you just take it straight from AI, the language is identifiable. And it's not that your website gets blacklisted or anything like that. It's just that you don't rank for it. It just doesn't get anything. So, and it might for a minute, right? It might show up, but eventually over time, those things are going to show up in algorithms. There's going to be some repercussions from doing that. So use it for ideas, use it to get jump started. But do not use it to write all your content on your website. Use it to write replies to negative reviews instead of your own hot language, right? Like go ahead and let it take some of the emotion out for you. But there's a lot of ways to use it. Content for your website's not one of them.
So how much, say I'm writing something and I'm not that great of a writer, right? So if I wanted AI to polish it up, grammar, and punctuation, is that something I'll get flagged for? Or is it like the bulk of the content that's the problem?
The bulk of the content. And actually, here's the thing about ChatGPT is it's super cool. So you can identify, hey, these are the keywords I want to rank for, right? And you can just start having a really friendly conversation with your ChatGPT. Be like, hey, ChatGPT, I need to write a blog. I want it to be about 500 words. You don't want it less than that. I need it to be based around this keyword. These are a few of the points I really want to emphasize. I asked ChatGPT to maybe give me an outline. What would be a good outline for this blog? Guess what? Now I got some chunks. I can go fill in. Anybody can go fill in. Your industry. You're way more of an expert, than often we give ourselves credit for. You go talk about those things all day long. So just start having this conversation with ChatGPT to help you make an outline using keywords and best practices, and have chat refine it. It can give you something. Never take the first thing it gives you. Get to be a really great at asking questions and say, hey, can you dive a little deeper into this? Or can you remove this? And I don't want to focus on do it yourself. I want to focus on why you should hire an expert. Just kind of talk it through, and then you're going to have an outline. You're going to go fill in the rest of the gaps. And that's good enough. So
I love it. And do you find it valuable for websites, specifically in the home service world, to have a blog and has that be the space that you're constantly adding content? So could you talk a little bit about the value of a blog and what it does for Google?
Yeah. So number one, I really love WordPress sites. We build all of our websites, custom WordPress sites. There's things that are quick out of the box website tools like Wix or Squarespace, some of those things like that, and they look good, but you are going to struggle when it comes to ranking on Google, right? And so you want to have, honestly, a WordPress site. You always want to have a blog function on it, because especially now where current and relevant content, helpful content is most valuable, that's where you can go write your content. So you're going to have your core service pages. And I think service pages should honestly look a lot like sales pages. So you don't just want a bunch of content on those pages. You want really helpful content, but you also want calls to actions throughout all your service pages. You want forms. You want, book an appointment, whatever you have on your actual service pages. And then your blog, we're going to use it to go in and rank for some long tail keywords. So this is like, and there might not be as much search volume for this topic, but people that are searching for it, they're going to be really, really good clients, right? They're going to be ideal type of prospects. And so you do that through a blog so that you can just really easily get content up on your site that the bots can go crawl. You're going to always have two audiences on a blog. Your main audience, quite frankly, is Google, are the bots, because most people aren't going to go read blogs. Your number one audience for your content on a blog is Google. Your number two audience is, the few people that might go actually read your blog. But our customers are going to be way more likely to watch a video on YouTube than they are to read your blog. So ideally, you're making a video, you're uploading it to YouTube, which is the second largest search engine right behind Google, happens to be owned by Google. So they're going to share information with each other. Make your video, get a ranking for it. Like, let your YouTube channel go do a lot of the heavy lifting for you when it comes to ranking, and then just embed that video in your blog. So that's the best of both worlds, I think, to do it. That's helpful content, right? Now you got words, you got some rich media with a video in there, and you're answering people's questions, you're giving details. Blogs typically will rank faster than actual service pages too, for that reason.
Got it. And you mentioned long tail keywords? I mean, I've heard of regular keywords. I know what long tail are, but can you explain to listeners the difference between standard keywords and long tail?
Yeah. Yeah. So like a standard keyword is going to be more competitive and it's going to be more broad based. So for example, like water damage cleanup, that might be a standard keyword. Now, if you're a restoration company, you want to rank for that all day long because that's your highest margin service, right? Like that's the keyword Eric was always wanting to rank for, some version of water damage cleanup. That's going to be super competitive. And you're not just ranking locally, you're ranking, right? So then a long tail keyword might look like more like, what to do when my basement floods in Long Beach, California, or whatever. Right now I'm a lot longer. I'm not going to have as much search volume for it, so it's going to be easier to rank for it. Google's going to know specifically what I'm talking about, so Google's going to know how to rank me. And whenever Google knows how to rank you, it rewards you.
I love it. That's great. So it's not just keywords like outdoor living or landscaping or patio. It is, new paver patio in Santa Barbara, California. Like that's the long tail side. I'm like, all right, so it's cheaper to run those, but it's more exact. So if somebody puts in that search query and they're like, well, wait a minute here. Google's like, that's the page right there. Point them there because it's already there.
That's all Google really cares about at the end of the day, right? Like us as businesses, we are not Google's customer. Like we pay Google all the money, but we are not who Google really cares about. Who Google really cares about are all of the billions of people doing searches, because all Google wants to do is show them the most current and most relevant thing for whatever they search for. That's why we all use Google, because we trust when we search for something, Google's going to show us the best options based on what we're looking for. So does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. I was just asking for 3, but listeners, we got a lot more than 3 out of that box of tricks that Katie's talking about. So I love to switch gears here and get into paid social media. I hear it all the time in the Facebook groups, and, different students come in and they're like, yeah, I'm putting in $500, $1,500, $5,000 a month into Facebook. And they're just trying to solve a problem by throwing money at it. And I've heard so many horror stories of so many of these guys and gals who at the end of the day, they're like, but I keep getting crap leads. Yeah, the phone's ringing, but they don't want what I have. And I'm like, because I'm thinking the idea is that, wow, like the phones are ringing. That makes me happy. That gives me that dopamine bump that I like the phone's ringing. I'm important again. But if you can't close them because they aren't closable, then why are you spending the money just to get action? You're just keeping your office staff busy running in circles.
Eric, you can speak to this because I know you've done a lot of social media marketing and Facebook ads over the years, and you can speak to that frustration big time. What are your kind of takeaways from it?
Yeah, we're still learning. It's really finding, I think I break it in 2, right? I have to do the work to build an organic audience that is unpaid, right? So I have to have enough people coming to me first, I think, to look credible. And then like the frosting on the cake for us is then you start running like Facebook ads to like mirrored images of my clients, right? Like, so kind of like the long tail, it's the same thing. It's like, all right, I know who my clients are, so I'm going to then try to have Facebook mimic all of those traits, plumber, HVAC, electrical, multi-truck, United States and Canada, whatever my thing would be, and start running Facebook ads to them. Look, I'm not a pro. Katie's the pro, but and look, for us, it's consistency, like being there all the time. There's something to be said for showing up. Too many people want to spend a few dollars on a Facebook ad, but they've put no other time into it whatsoever. And what do people do? They start looking you up. Well, what do you do? Who are you? Like, if I'm going to go to your free webinar, I want to know who you are first, right? So you have to curate your online presence to, I think, make those things pay.
Yeah, really good point. So, a lot of the things I would just add to that, the main thing I'd add is always like, this is true of all your marketing, right? But especially, I think we get derailed with social with this. Like, what is your goal? What are you trying to accomplish with your Facebook posts or your TikTok posts or whatever, or your ads, right? Like, what is your goal? Because sometimes, depending on your industry, that might not be the right place to be. And if it's not the right place to be, or at least be spending money, don't be there and be spending money. Like, you've always got to know, where's your audience, right? And how do they make decisions? So you've got to spend some time really understanding, who's my audience? What resonates with them? How do they make decisions? What we do know is Google is high intent, meaning like it's bottom of the funnel. Somebody needs to find something, make a decision. They go to Google. It's very intent based. That's why leads tend to be better coming from Google, generally speaking, right? Social media, you think about it, it's so disruptive. Like, you don't know why somebody's on Facebook or Instagram when they saw your ad. Are they standing in the line at the grocery store? Are they, like, it's so disruptive. And so you've got to show it more often to hit the right person at the right time. So you've already got to understand that. And then what's the goal of it? If you're saying, like, I'll give you an example. We had a client who owned a small local gym, really small, tiny town, owned a local gym. And for the first time, they're like, we're going to pay an agency to run our social media marketing. Great. They're like, we're going to give them $500 a month. Great. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's not enough, right? Budget is a whole nother conversation about where you come in at. Great. So we're going to do it, right? Start running ads. Well, my account manager is like freaking out because they're like, dude, these guys are really hard to work with. Like, they have unreasonable expectations. This is not going to work. I'm like, well, what do they want? Well, they want 200 leads a month. Okay. We live in a very small town, right? It's a small local gym. They want 200 leads a month. He's like, I can't get them 200 leads a month for $500. I'm like, you can't get them 200 leads a month where we're at, period, right? Ever. And so I'm like, go back to them and ask them, on your very best month ever, how many leads did you get from social media, right? Comes back. Guess how many? 9. 9.
Wow.
Like, whoa, what's this gap right here that just happened, right? You want 200 leads when your best month ever was 9. So we've got to have some really realistic expectations of what we expect to have happen there. If it's like, hey, I want to go build my presence, Eric hit on it when he was like, you got to be really consistent. People need to see you over and over. We're disrupting them in their news feed. We don't know when they're going to need us. We don't know why they're going to need us. So you've got to have some consistency to it. You've got to have some really realistic goals, right? And then you probably, when you get to the place where you're running some ads, you got to do some A/B testing. What's going to work? It could be really small things that make the difference in that. And then I think you got to talk budget size, because sometimes you say, I'm going to put $500 to my social. You do the same on Google. Sometimes we put such a small budget to it and then we say it doesn't work. Well, if your budget isn't the right size, just don't even waste it there, right? If it's not going to be enough to make a difference, then don't do it, right? Go invest that money, that resource somewhere else, or figure out what is the right budget. Where do I move the needle? Because there is that place where it's not enough. There's also a place where it's too much. Like, don't be wasteful with it. There's a point of diminishing return, and you got to kind of play around and figure out that budget right there. But social's fun. Social will build a brand probably better than anything else, right? I think being in front of people all the time makes people feel like they know you and like you, trust you before they ever need you. And when you're talking about a sales funnel, I think it's important to just say, okay, where does this platform fit in my funnel? And I guarantee you social has a place in that funnel, but it might not be the very bottom of it. It's probably higher up in the funnel. And so be realistic about what you want of it so that you can go treat it that way.
Yeah, I love that. So if you had to pick your top 1 or 2 best bang for your buck in the paid social area, where would you put your money? I know it depends on the company, but if it's a home service company, doing things direct to homeowners, where do you think the best value is right now?
I'm going, if I'm not looking outside of just social, right? I'm really putting my eyes close on local service ads right out of the gate. they work really good in some industries and not great in others. And Google's in love with this platform and they're changing it. And sometimes their changes are good and sometimes they're not. But honestly, when you can pay per lead and be at the very, very, very top of a page and be in an intent-based situation, like you got to look at local service ads and decide if they're right for you. And then I always think everybody should always be investing in organic, because exactly for what you said, Josh, when it's sponsored and you're going to scroll down, right? And so you've got to spend the time and the work to put content out there and organically show up on the search engines. And so I think you've got to invest in organic and do that. We also know, just so you know, that when somebody's running an ad at the top of the page, even for somebody like you that scrolls down to the organic, you are 89% more likely to click on an organic listing if you saw their ad up above it. So it influences our behavior. I mean, I love to not click on the ad and go down and click on the organic, but the likelihood that they'll click on your organic increases if they just see you in the ads. So that's interesting. The other one that I just think is worth kind of pointing out, we maybe don't think of it as social so much or part of our marketing, but I mean, I think that all home services businesses should have a focus on video right now. You should be making video, you should be growing your YouTube channel, and you should be sharing that collateral across the board in your Facebook ads, in your organic social, like in all the places you should be embedding video and using video. But it will never be cheaper to advertise on YouTube than it is right now. It is pennies on the dollar compared to Google. But man, we consume a lot of video. We watch a lot of video.
I love it. So one thing I want to get to before we wrap up, and I appreciate all that, some great stuff out there, is when it comes to supercharging your website, what are like some top 3 things we can do that are pretty simple to help get that website supercharged for the search engines?
You got it. I'm a really big fan of Donald Miller's Story Brand. Building a Story Brand is the book, and he has a podcast and he has a ton of stuff out there. Get familiar with this idea of building a story brand, where we think we build a website and we think it's all about us. Like we're going to show our equipment or we're going to show our services. And we forget that actually it's all about our customer that's coming to that website. So you got to go put eyes on your website and make sure it answers the pain points, the concerns, the questions of our people coming. Donald Miller teaches like never make somebody burn any calories trying to figure out what you do. And that's a good kind of gut check for your website. Go look at it, have somebody else look at it. If somebody can't tell what you do, who you are, what you do, and how they buy in like at a glance, like you got to make some changes on your website. And then make sure you've got great calls to action all throughout your page. We find things different ways. We interact different ways. So you want to make sure that is true. And finally, this is like the most important part of marketing that I think is under talked about, but is just the conversion tracking side of it. So you got to make sure you got Google Analytics 4 installed. You got to make sure you're using like Google Search Console, and you've got to have some conversion tracking on there so that, especially as Google uses more AI, right? Google starts to optimize your ads based on what it thinks is a conversion. And if it's optimizing on information that is crap, you're going to end up just getting more crap leads, right? And so we've got to make sure that the conversion tracking is really working so that we are feeding in good information to Google so that it's optimizing for the type of conversions. And that starts, honestly, with your website having good information on it too. So does that help? That's so much.
It's very helpful.
I'm such
I helped.
Like it's all such dorky information.
I was hoping you would nerd out on us. That was my goal, and you did great.
I could feel myself nerding out as I spoke, so I'm so sorry. To me, it's so fun, right? We started our agency because there's just a lot of really crappy agencies out there, and I think every business owner has dealt with that. I hate it. I hate it a lot. They think they're buying something, and they jump in, and it's not what they expected, right? I feel like I say this all the time, but your marketing is kind of like your baby. It's like, hey, here's my baby, right? Like, I love it. My whole hopes and dreams for my whole family is invested in this. I work 60 hours a week to get by, but here's my marketing. Will you go take care of it? And so I think it's a really big deal for people to know what they can do and how to hold people accountable that are helping them, and some of the options that they have to really grow their business with it.
I love it. No, I appreciate it, Katie. Thank you for that. And so today, guys, I just want to recap before we wrap up here. We talked about the top 3 ways to get found on Google. It actually, Katie came up with a bunch more. Also paid, social media, what's the best bang for your buck? And then the toolkit for supercharging that website. She talked about CTAs. You talked about earlier with the blog and all these different things in order to get this website found. Because if you aren't found, you're not going to get the work. It's that simple. So it's very important. There's this whole concept, and we'll get into this next week more about this, whether you're going to do something social and where it's quick and kind of a flash in the pan, or whether you're going to do something evergreen that you're putting on your website that'll be used for many, many years that Google will see and utilize. So, because next week we're going to focus on a social media deep dive, how to stop wasting money on Meta, unless you know this secret. So that's what Katie and I are going to jump into next week. So guys, thanks for listening. And Eric and Katie,
Thank you
again.